Hey guys, welcome to another 31 Horror Toys in 31 Days review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Ash vs. Evil Dead figure by NECA Toys. Now this figure is absolutely awesome. I have no complaints. I think this may be the best NECA figure I've ever seen. So absolutely no complaints, and I do recommend this guy. So we'll go over why he's so cool in a few seconds, but first off let's take a look at his packaging, which also the packaging itself is really cool. As you can see, it's got a nice image of Bruce Campbell there from the show, which, you know, it's a rather flattering picture. I think it actually makes him look a bit younger than he is. That's pretty cool. It says Ash vs. Evil Dead there, Ash Williams. And then just in the background you can see like a bloody forest in there. I like that. This is a really good package. And then we've got an Ash vs. Evil Dead logo there. That says NECA. And then same on the other side, and then the top just gives you a little bit more display area for seeing Ash in package. And then of course there's a warning that you can kill children if you want or something like that. And then you've got the back of the packaging, which is done very well. I like this. You can see the other figures in the wave, as well as sort of displays the figure and all of his awesomeness, like all of his little accessories that he comes with, and then just him in total. Yeah, I really like this figure, and this back of the packaging is really done well. I mean, it's nearly so good that you'd want it displayed backwards while showing off the figure. Like, that looks really good to me. Better than just having, like, the packaging itself up front. Okay, and then there's also a read-up that says, let me get this in focus so you guys can see. Ash vs. Evil Dead Ash vs. Evil Dead follows Ash, the stock boy, aging Lothario, and chainsaw-handed monster hunter who has spent the last 30 years avoiding responsibility, maturity, and the terrors of the Evil Dead. When a deadite plague threatens to destroy all of mankind, Ash is finally forced to face his demons, personal and literal. Destiny, it turns out, has no plans to release the unlikely hero from its evil grip. I'd like to point out that he actually kind of started all of the evil coming back and all. It just a little thing to point out. I love Ash vs. Evil Dead. It's a real laugh riot. You guys definitely need to check it out if you haven't. And of course, the original movies, Evil Dead 1, Evil Dead 2, and then Army of Darkness, are amazing movies that you definitely have to check out. They've got a great sense of humor to them. It's the second one's like a dark comedy. The first one's just a cheesy horror flick. And then the third one is just absolute comedic gold mixed in with a little bit of horror and a lot of gore. Actually not as much gore in the third one, now that I think of it, but still very awesome. Okay. So let's take a look at the figure himself. As you can see, just posed here, he looks really good. But to start off, let's talk about the sculpt and paint, which I believe it's been done amazingly. His face looks perfect. It just looks absolutely like Bruce Campbell in his older age. His profile shots there look really good. Let's get a very up-close look of him. Why not? If my camera will allow it, of course. There we go. I think that's in focus. Yeah, that really captures his look. And I like how they didn't paint the skin tone. It's actually just naturally like that. And yet it still looks very realistic. Usually when they do that, it looks like too plasticky or what have you. But here it just has a very naturalistic look to it. And then they kind of touched it up with little accentuating paints here and there. And then like on the lips. And then there's a little bit of a 5 o'clock shadow under his nose, which you can kind of pick up. I think his eyes are done pretty well. Maybe a little bit off on this one. His eyebrows are clean. He's got the little dusty white hair put on his sideburns. And then the overall body is not actually painted all that much. Just like the arms here I think are painted. And then just little details like the belt and the straps. The main part of him though, like the entire legs, doesn't have any paint detail. And that's okay because really it's not needed. And the reason why this isn't a bloody version of Ash is because there's a variant that's just completely soaked in blood. And I like that we don't just get two bloody versions, because really in the show he doesn't go around covered in blood all the time. He does get covered in blood a lot, but I like having the option of just having him clean looking. I would also like the bloody variant that's coming out, so I'm probably going to try and pick that one up. But it's cool to have this one as well. And I like that they made his face sculpt for this one just a very plain, sort of stoic face. It's not his weird expressions or anything. Like, if you take a look on this one here, he's got more of a raised eyebrow, bit of a scared look. And well, it's a cool sculpt. I do like that we have sort of a regular toned as well. And something I might as well point out is it says removable heads and hands are all compatible with other versions of Ash in the Ash vs. Evil Dead line. So that is really cool that you can just swap their heads and hands around, so I'm probably going to have to get this one as well just because. Then I don't really feel like I need to get this guy because it's just another generic bad guy. Well, not the most generic. If it was a Deadite, then it would be generic, but I don't know, I just don't really care for that bad guy. So, if you want to get some sort of Deadite to go with him, try getting the Sleepy Hollow hag or witch figure that McFarlane Toys put out. That sort of matches up well next to him. And as you remember, as I'm sure you remember from the Army of Darkness movie, he's always shooting old ladies that are like witch types, and this looks almost exactly like that. It's just perfect. And, of course, he's also the spearhead of many great lines like "Give me some sugar, baby," stuff like that. I'm sure many of you have used that pickup line. Okay, as for paint, let's get back to that. The straps on his body are not painted perfectly. They are painted well, but there's just little parts where the black has sort of deviated from its main area. Let me see if I can get some focus. There we are. Yeah. So you can barely see, like, just there's a little... I'm not going to complain about this. I'm fine with the way it looks, but those really whiny baby girls may say something about it, like, it's so off, it's so off, I can't take it, I'm going to kill myself. But I'm okay with it. I like that look. And just basically overall, I'd say he is sculpted perfectly. The folds of his pants work perfectly. His shoes look awesome, and they're painted very well. It's got a brown color with black at the bottom. It's even sculpted at the bottom of the feet. Yeah, and then he's got 2 peg holes here as well, just in case you were wondering. And then it's got a black wash over it there, so that looks good. And then now we can talk about the accessories, I suppose. Well, I might as well talk about... I didn't put this arm on too tight because I want to be able to remove it rather easily, so that's why that fell off. It doesn't actually usually fall off like that. The chainsaw here is painted very well, sculpted very well. I have no complaints. I think it's been done extremely well. I really like Ash's chainsaw hand here. It's got a little bit of a brown handle here, a little silver gunmetal stuff. And then, of course, it's not very bloody because this is the clean version of Ash. Yeah, but it's got that black wash all over that just accentuates. Yeah, I just really like that. So let's pop this off. And let's talk about his other accessory, which is an alternate arm here, which has 2 alternate hands. Let me pop this in very securely. There we are. This is his stump hand, which is basically just him before he gets a weapon on, or his power glove, as he calls it, I believe. So if you want to have him doing one of those jumping to get his chainsaw pose, like when he's doing that, I love that. It's a great part of the show. You can do that. And it's kind of weird, it does have a peg in there, so if you want, you can actually take off the chainsaw from this hand and pop it in there. It's not too secure, it's a little tight, but I might as well show you. See, it kind of pegs in here, very tight. And then just, you can have them with the extra extended arm, which, I don't think that's actually what you're supposed to do, but it's optional. I don't know if he's ever done anything like that. But then you pop that off, and you get his power glove hand, which is really the way I like to display him. I like to see him like this. He just seems more cool, having that weird robotic hand. That's what I like about Army of Darkness. He makes his own robotic hand, and then you don't have to worry about him having to wear the chainsaw the whole time. Which, in fact, in Army of Darkness, he only wears the chainsaw at the beginning. Kind of odd. This is kind of loosening up on me, though, because at first it came off fairly tightly, now it's just relatively loose. Slight complaint. Okay, another thing I might as well mention as for sculpt is this hand is permanently sculpted in a trigger finger pose, which, can bother some people, but for me it's not a problem because that means that the gun will fit in his hand perfectly, and I'll show you that in a second. Might as well talk about this accessory, which is sculpted very well and painted very well. It's got nice black wash on it, a little bit of a wood grain paint. Yeah, I just like the look of that. It's rather basic. There's not much you can really do with a cut-off double barrel. It's got the trigger there. Then it's even got little holes for the barrel's front. And it can be stored in his pouch back here. It fits rather tightly. It's, you know, not too tight, but fair. And then this is made out of rubber. I might as well point out that as well. And it's then glued on to his back. And this entire torso, in fact, this area here, is made out of rubber. And then underneath it's the regular plastic. So it's more pliable and doesn't limit the articulation. I kind of like that. It's kind of useful in some ways, but I don't know how that holds up over the years. We'll have to see about that. Okay, and now what I'd like to point out is how wonderfully this shotgun fits into his hand. Let me just slide this in here. Look how the finger just goes right over the trigger, like so. I just love that so much, because so many figures aren't able to do that. I really like the way that works. And then he holds it so naturally. Sculpted very well for that. He has to have his boomstick, so might as well make him so that he carries it. I would like if he came with a separate hand that's just a relaxed hand, but at the same time, I probably would lose that hand and just end up using this anyway. So, yeah, I think it's better off just leaving it like this so that we don't have to constantly pop off hands and then people would be breaking it and then complaining and all that. Okay, so sculpt and paint, completely solid, no complaints so far. Might as well point out he does come with an alternate head. Let's pop this head off and show you that. It's a little tight taking the head off and putting it on, and it's not a ball joint so much, it's more of just a stick joint with this tiny hole there. You pop that in, and now he's got his angry face, which I like it. It's a goofy. I wouldn't really display him like this much, but if you're doing a stop motion and you want to convey anger, I think that's pretty good. At first I thought I might like this head better because it's more expressive, but then it turns out I like just the regular stoic face much more. He has a cut on his face here. He's got that angry face. He's got well sculpted teeth, well painted too. Or dentures, I should say. If you've seen the pilot episode, then you know what I mean. He's got a little bit of that powdered hair, which I think, yeah, it's not quite the same design of the hair. In profile, he looks a little bit weirder as well. Yeah, I just like that head sculpt, but not as much. Alright, let's pop this off, and then that's all of his accessories. So now, let's take a look at his articulation, which he does knock it out of the ballpark. I think even for NECA's articulation, he is very good. Very, very good. And NECA is well known for having very well articulated, great sculpted figures, and he matches that perfectly. Starting out at the head, he can do a full 360. He has head pivot, which is quite good for making him expressive, like the hey, who are you, stuff like that. Or just if he wants to give you that weird, naughty head. And then he can also look up that much, and he can look down that much. And then at the shoulders, he can move full 360, and then move this one up to almost a right angle to his body, and this one not so much. It's a little more inhibited, but it's about the same in every other way. Then at the elbow here, you can do a full articulation of that much, way past a 90 degree angle, and that is because it's double jointed, unlike many NECA figures. As you can see here, it's not like the Marvel Legends type of double joint. It's more of this big middle piece and then these two separate pieces up here, but I do like the way that works. Now, I don't think I pointed out how this power glove is sculpted, by the way. Very well done. And painted well too, lots of silver little details. There's the underside. Just sculpted to the bear. Man, everything's got done perfectly on this. Okay, now that we're talking about articulation, there's also a swivel here, and then, let's see, right at the bottom of the bicep, and then right at the beginning of the forearm, and then at the mid forearm there's another spin, and then even on this hand there's a little bit of articulation, but it's inhibited because of this part here. So if you wanted to, you could actually cut that part. No idea what that was. That was something in the background falling. Okay, it's a ghost. Well, I suppose that's fair because it's Halloween that I get killed by a ghost on camera. Okay, as you can see, there's the articulation, and it does sort of move around this rubbery middle piece here. Then he can also kind of articulate inward and outward with the hand just a little bit. So that's pretty good. A little extra articulation, I'd never complain about that. On the other side, it's just about the same at the elbow, and then at the wrist, he just has one articulation, which is the spin. But I think he's also, yeah, it's kind of a ball joint, so he can move up and down or side to side a bit. Having trouble keeping this in focus today. Okay, then at the waist, it feels like he's got an articulation point here, but it can't really be used. So it's basically this point down here that does the swivel, and then a little bit forward and a little bit back, maybe, if you work with it. And then at the hips, he can kick forward that much, which is a fair amount. He can kick back a little, kick off to the side, not quite as much on the other side. And then at the knees, he can bend to almost a 90-degree angle on both sides, as well as having ankle articulation, which is ankle pivot, and here he is using that ankle pivot to his fullest extent, which can give him that bit of a splits look. And I like that. That's good for dynamic posing. Then he can also move his foot backwards and forwards a bit. And of course, moving forwards is inhibited by this pant, I'm going to call that, I don't know, pant leg, I guess, which is a bit of a hard sculpt. It's not soft, so you can't just like push it past. So anyway, let's also mention that on his chainsaw arm, the articulation is the same at the elbow, but there's also just one spin right there. So there you go. His articulation is great, his sculpt is great, his paint is great. Honestly, guys, what I'm saying is, if you see this guy, pick him up. Don't even hesitate. He's a definite, he's a must, especially if you like Ash. But if you don't like Ash, and you just like figures, pick him up anyway, because he is awesome. So anyway, stick around for some size comparisons and just poses of this guy. And make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace. Ash stands at just under 7 inches tall. Here's young Ash next to old Ash, and as you can see, he shrunk just the slightest bit over the years, so that is actually natural. That happens in real life. Happened to my dad, so that's not bad. I like the way that was done. Here's Ash next to the Marvel Zombie. Here's Ash next to a horrified looking Dale.